So, over the past few years, there have been a shortage of mecha series throughout the 2010s. While you save your typical Gundam installments in the likes of Iron Blooded Orphans, Unicorn, as well as some other anime series that are known for combining giant robots with post-military combat, which unfortunately for some of them happen to went off the rails as soon as they end. So, when I first heard about the announcement of this show that sets up a militarized political sci-fi war drama set between two different nations integrated in everlasting conflict in which they use giant robots— oh wait, hold on, that's not it. Robot spiders for combat, I was pretty stoked for it. Now, really, military-based anime are nothing new these days. I mean, just take a look at what I previously mentioned. But actually, what made the show particularly interesting to me was the fact that it was based on a light novel, which is heralded as one of the most well-acclaimed / award-winning stories to come out in recent memory. Heck, it's even rated as one of the highest rankings on my anime list. Now, even before the anime was announced, I was pretty content to actually reading it, since the premise alone made it worthwhile to check it out. Known for tackling heavy topics such as discrimination, propaganda, and hardships in wartime, it should have been a no-brainer for this to get an adaptation. So by the time it was going to air this season, I was just like, oh wait, hold on, it's coming out now? Oh, okay, I guess might as well just watch it then. So, now that we're in a few episodes in, and we're already going through the emotionally nuanced yet thrilling ride that is 86, I'm now going to be talking about as to why you should be watching it this season. Now, before we get into the main dish, let's talk about what exactly this show is. Firstly, when you take a look at what the entire thing is about from the surface, you may think that this is a story that draws in a lot of similar elements from World War II, and that my answer is that you are absolutely correct. If you want to dig in further as to how this story was first created, then you should look no further than the original author, Asato. That's her full name, I guess. I have no idea how or why she was named that way. Just go with it, okay? Anyways, starting off by writing novels very early on in middle school, while there really isn't that much said about how she initially began writing as a novelist, trust me, it's most common for people that studies in Japan, by the way, she was able to apply work for a novel publishing house, and once she got the job, she was able to compose her very first feature-length light novel that was directly inspired by military drone warfare embedded with substances of sci-fi war elements. And that novel was 86. Now let's take a look at the synopsis. Set in a near-futuristic world held between two different nations, the Empire of Giat declares war on all neighboring countries by combating an army of militarized drones known as the Legion. Threatened by said drones, the Republic of Sang Magnolia, home to the silver-haired Alba race, evacuated its citizens inside 85 districts and developed supposedly unmanned drones known as juggernauts to counter said Legion. Even after years of the ongoing war between the two nations, the Republic boasts that they have suffered 0 casualties in the process, which unfortunately does not seem to be the case. As it turns out, there is a hidden 86th district by which the Colorado people, who are basically your standard everyday human beings, are being posed as minorities, whom are hence forced into living in said district. Not only that, but they are also ordered to pilot the juggernauts as processors under the scornful command of the Republican handlers. Vladilena Milice, a Republican soldier with a strong sense of justice, detests the way her countrymen treat the 86. So by the time she is assigned to the Spearhead Squadron as a handler, she meets a group of oddballs and eventually grows attached to them, particularly their captain, Shane Ivers, a boy with a pure sense of purpose and resolve. There are a lot of reasons as to why 86 should be deserving of your attention. For what has been established already, this is a series that is known for tackling militarized themes such as fascism, living in wartime, and most important of all, how a race can abuse and fiercely dispatch an inferior one out to their own deaths, without serving a greater purpose other than for the former's own safety. A good example of this can even come from the author herself, since the story she's been meaning to tell wants to demonstrate and I quote, the boundaries between humans and those who are humans, but are not treated as such. End quote. Now, although this is meant to be a serious show through and through, that doesn't mean that it won't have some laid-back moments in order to give our characters room to breathe, while at the same time adding depth as to how they live in the conditions that are set up for them. Not to mention the dynamics within each of said characters and how they interact with one another carries a sense of weightiness to them, making them feel as if they're actually pretty nice people to be around, which makes this all the more tragic by the inevitable fact that not all of them are going to survive in the end. Oh wow, that reminds me of another show that carries that same sentiment. I wonder what exactly it was again. Oh! Well, I mean, at least they have robot spiders! Okay, I'll stop, I'm sorry. Speaking of the characters, they are definitely going to be the most important element of the entire series, since it is largely centered around them and how each of their perspectives views the somewhat chaotic world they live in. On the one hand, you have Vladilena, the Undertaker of the Spearhead Squadron, and the main heroine, of course. While she may appear to be a bit diligent, yet also a naive officer from the surface, she is often really a kind-hearted girl who mainly wants to look out for a squadron despite her race treating them like utter garbage. Not only that, but she does have integrities as to why she acts this way and really does care for what happens to her squad, even though they may not carry the same sense of sentimentality towards her. On the other hand, you have Shin, the commander of the Spearhead Squadron, the stoic, silent protagonist who could easily have the same amount of traits that are coincided with an edgy teen who just so happens to think he's a lone wolf, but in reality he's just desperate to get attention for the sake of it. But that isn't the case here. Like Vladilena, Shin does carry a large sense of responsibility for the group he's been in charge of, while also being alleged by the fact that he's been through 5 years on the front lines, which is essentially a pretty valid reason to keep an eye out for him, since he is basically a mystery box, waiting to be uncovered as to what he has been through and how he deals with being a processor for half a decade, and how that, in and of itself, could unravel the reasons as to what future events might behold both him and the rest of the cast. While there isn't really that much I can say about the supporting cast, what I can say about them is that they are also well thought out, with each multitude of said characters coming from different sides of the spectrum, stating how they tend to view each other as discriminative people, whilst demonstrating through the more lighthearted moments that they're just normal human beings just trying to get by in this god-forsaken world. Heck, there are even moments during said lighthearted moments in which the characters, intentionally or not, essentially goof off in ways that would actually serve as a nice slice of comedy every now and then. Now, given that said themes can be served as a reference for World War II back in the day, there is a lot more stuff that can be uncovered the further you progress throughout the show. Now, I'm not going to be giving out major details as to how the plot is taking place because, spoilers, but what I can say is this. While discrimination is a common topic that has been tackled throughout many kinds of media-related establishments that are set during a war period, there can be cases in which some tend to dwell on focusing as to what is happening to main characters rather than how said events can affect the rest of the world around them. Now, I'm not saying that 86 does break the mold in terms of that discussion, but it should be acknowledged that war sadly does involve everyone that are unfortunate enough to be in the middle of it, regardless of where they come from and how their status is compared to the rest. It's an admittedly harsh reality to accept, since the worst case scenario of what a person can go through during said war, aside from getting killed, can end up getting plagued through authoritarianism and prejudice, which in turn can strip down a human being's entire worth. Hell, just look at the Color Riders, since they are the ones who have been stripped down of their identity by the Alba race, and their hands confiscated to a state in which they must always prep up for fighting in the battlefield, just for assuring the safety of people who don't really give a damn about them either way, and that sucks. Thus, the acts of the Sag Magnolia Republic can be served as a juxtaposition to real-life governments by which they normally run their countries through dictation and persecution. Hence, the entire show, in and of itself, can be served as a valid message through criticizing the ways a certain nation can be governed by and how their decisions can have an everlasting impact in a population who is at the mercy without having the freedom to express themselves of any value. Wow, this sort of took a backseat there, didn't it? How about we lighten up the tone for a bit? Now, in terms of production values, the studio who is responsible for adapting 86 is being helmed by A1 Pictures, whom, as you may already be aware of, is also behind the likes of making Sword Art Online, Anohana, Your Lie in April, and many other shows that we don't need to mention. Now, admittedly, while their track record has been a hit or a miss at times, mostly because they pick up way too many productions to animate on, but when they receive a property that has the potential to go big, then you would know that they're going to do tremendous work with it, even if said property was Sword Art Online. So behind the director's chair, we have Ishii Toshimasa. Now, surprisingly, this is his first time taking charge in a running production, since his previous works are mostly directing certain episodes from each anime he partook in, and once you've seen what he's done, you know he has some very talented flair to him. Then we have mechanical designer 1-4. And now, if my judgment is correct, a mechanical designer is someone who takes charge in the CGI department. Now, I don't want to get too biased into how certain anime CG serves as a meandering distraction because that topic has already been talked to death already, but over the past few years, there have been definitely a huge improvement over how they look and can even enhance the experience when watching a show. If you want to know how impressive his track record is, then look no further than Al Noah Zero and Recreators. And finally, we have the music composer. I mean, do I really need to mention who is handling this role? Yep, definitely an enemy of the season, alright. So now that we've established who has partaken in each staff role, let's take a look at how well it does when it comes to adapting the light novels. Now, mind you, this is coming from someone who has never really read the source material to begin with, so yeah, this is going to be completely subjective, and I don't know if they have made any cuts or any changes to certain details or whatever. Anyways, be warned. The art direction looks pretty damn impressive, with each character being rendered in consistently without it being too flashy nor messy, and the art background helps to give off a sense of visual immersion while even contriving with its show-don't-tell direction. Speaking of which, the series composer Uno Toshio can either be a large benefit or a disaster for how the show would tell its narrative, considering his latest attempt in an adaptation went horribly wrong. But so far, I think he's handling the source material pretty well, because from what I've experienced, this adaptation has managed to put a good balance between its informative exposition as well as its more action-packed moments. And now that we're getting into said action, it should be a no-brainer that A1 Pictures nails it when it comes to that department. Thanks to the pre-mentioned CG design by 1-4, the drones used in the show avoids looking like an eyesore, and with the animation team behind it making them feel like actual machines that can cause mass destruction, both with the Legion's drones and the 86's. In both its shots and storyboarding, the same direction applied with its show-don't-tell technique is also well adjusted, with unique camera techniques helping to integrate in its tension as soon as the characters go into battle. And that too can also apply to other scenes that have no action whatsoever. So yeah, it's pretty good. And that's all I can say about this. Well, okay, there are still going to be several more episodes coming in the near future by the time this video goes out, not to mention that there is going to be a split core by the time the 11th episode is. So while this may pose as a likely chance for it to flub, I don't think the team behind this will do anything too drastic for it to happen. Mind you, there are a few cons that I can point out during this run. It can be at times a bit of a slow burner. There haven't exactly been any moments that would help solidify it as a worthy watch yet. And there might be some details from the light novel that might serve as detrimental info for the series that could end up getting cut out from the final product. So if you are someone who has read the source material and feel like it's missing out on some stuff, then be sure to let me know down in the comments. Overall, I think it's safe to say that 86 is in a good place right now, so by the time you want to watch it, then you are definitely going to have your worthwhile.